Treasure hunting on Oak Island isn't just about digging through mud with heavy machinery. It's about secrets buried so deep they survive generations, quiet rivalries that influence decisions, and risks so high they can either create a legacy or completely destroy it. And now, something unprecedented is about to happen at the legendary Money Pit. Rick Lagina, surrounded for years by failed expeditions, wild theories, and unanswered questions, is preparing to attempt something no one else has truly committed to before. This isn't just another dig or another theory. It's a carefully planned effort to outsmart the island itself and uncover the treasure believed to be hidden beneath layers of history, waiting for the right person to finally reveal it. Before going further, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us continue exploring the untold mysteries, hidden stories, and quiet struggles that make Oak Island one of the most fascinating places in the world. It all started with something most people would have ignored: old papers and forgotten exploration reports from decades ago. They were worn, stained, and buried in storage, long dismissed as unreliable and outdated by previous treasure hunters. But Rick saw something others didn't. Where they saw useless clutter, he noticed patterns. Where they saw dead ends, he saw possibilities. Instead of discarding them, he took a closer look. The reports mentioned unusual anomalies, subtle irregularities in underground readings, and faint but consistent disturbances in the soil. These patterns didn't match natural formations. They suggested something deeper, something hidden far beneath the Money Pit, something invisible from the surface but potentially massive and very real. It hinted at a hidden system that earlier explorers may have unknowingly circled for years without understanding what lay beneath them. Rick didn't rush to share this idea. He knew Oak Island's history was full of bold claims that collapsed under scrutiny, and he wasn't going to repeat that mistake. Instead, he moved quietly and strategically. He presented the idea as a small side project, something low risk that wouldn't interfere with the main operation. On the surface, it seemed minor, almost insignificant. But behind that calm approach was a strong and unshakable determination. Gradually, he built a focused team. Not the loudest voices or the harshest skeptics, but people who had endured years of disappointment and still believed there was more to discover. These were individuals who knew what failure looked like and could sense when something felt different. Together, they weren't just working another dig site anymore. They were stepping into a risk that could change everything. For Rick, this wasn't just about treasure. It was about answers. It was about proving the mystery was more than just a legend passed down through generations. It was real, and it could be found. His legacy, his belief, and his identity as a treasure hunter all depended on whether this bold gamble would succeed or fade away like so many attempts before it. But secrets rarely stay hidden for long. At first, there were whispers, quiet conversations among workers, subtle glances, and unanswered questions. Oak Island wasn't just a site. It was a legacy built over years, and nothing there escaped attention for long. People began noticing changes. Rick was focusing on something new. Time and resources were shifting. Slowly, doubt began to spread. Some believed he was chasing yet another theory, wasting valuable time, setting himself up for failure again. The skepticism wasn't loud, but it was constant. And when it finally surfaced openly, the criticism was sharp. Some dismissed his approach entirely, calling it just another hopeful guess in a place full of them. The words carried weight. Anyone else might have backed down, but Rick didn't. He listened. He observed. And then he made a quiet decision. He wouldn't argue. He would prove them wrong through results. That's when things began to change. The team slowly split. Some veterans stuck to traditional methods and trusted past experience. Others, more curious, more willing to take risks, gravitated toward Rick. They saw something in his approach. Not recklessness, but control. Not desperation, but clarity. And just like that, a centuries-old search began to transform into something entirely new. All it needed now was proof. That proof came in the form of a map, old, fragile, and weathered. Its edges were torn, Its markings faded almost beyond recognition. At first glance, it seemed worthless, just another forgotten artifact buried among outdated records. But Rick noticed details no one else had seen. Subtle patterns, faint curves, small markings that didn't feel random anymore. To others, it was meaningless. To Rick, it was a key. He compared it with modern scan data, advanced imaging that revealed the island in ways early explorers never could. Piece by piece, he studied both, layering old knowledge with new technology. And slowly, something remarkable began to take shape. Hidden formations beneath the surface, structures untouched by previous digs, pathways no drill had ever reached. The journals of early explorers added even more support, describing something buried deeper than expected, as if the island itself had been designed to protect it. Rick could feel it. This was different. For years, excavations had happened all around this very area, close enough to almost touch the truth, yet never close enough to truly see it. They had been right there all along, and still they had missed it. Because deep beneath the money pit lay what could be one of the greatest undiscovered treasures in Oak Island's history, waiting in silence. Rick carefully rolled up the map, sealed it, and hid it away. This wasn't something he could risk sharing, not yet. If even a hint of this discovery got out, if the wrong people focused on that location too soon, everything could fall apart before it even truly began. What he had found wasn't just another theory, it was different. It felt real, and it had the potential to change everything. Rick stood still for a moment, letting that realization sink in. Years of searching, doubt, and chasing fragments of a mystery that never fully revealed itself had all led to this point. This wasn't noise or speculation anymore. This was direction, clear, precise, and risky. For the first time, the island no longer felt like an unsolvable puzzle. It felt like something that could finally be understood, but only if he acted carefully, and only if he acted first. Because once this path became known, there would be no turning back. The delicate balance of the entire operation would be disrupted, and attention would shift instantly to the same spot. Rick knew he couldn't allow that to happen. Not until he was certain, not until he was ready. So instead of announcing his discovery, he took action. That night, quietly and without drawing attention, he made his move. Plans that had been built in secrecy began to unfold under the dark skies of Oak Island. The site looked still, filled with silent machinery. But beneath that stillness, something deliberate was happening. In the shadows, Rick Lagina led a completely different operation. While most of the team slept, his trusted group moved equipment across the muddy ground like ghosts. Drilling rigs ran in short, controlled bursts, blending into the natural sounds of the site. Tools were carried under covers, and sensitive equipment was assembled piece by piece, hidden beneath piles of lumber and excavation debris. By daylight, everything was concealed so well it looked untouched, as if nothing unusual had happened at all. The team understood the risk. One wrong sound, one flash of light, one small mistake could expose everything before they had any real proof. But instead of fear, the secrecy gave them focus. Every layer they uncovered wasn't just progress. It was a quiet stand against decades of failure. Managing resources became one of the toughest challenges. Every movement, every hour of work had to look routine. Rick carefully adjusted schedules and records, making sure the hidden operation blended perfectly into normal activity. To anyone watching, it was just another ordinary day on the island. But beneath that normal appearance, something far more strategic was taking place. Still, Oak Island never gives up its secrets easily. Small inconsistencies began to show. Equipment usage didn't quite match the logs. Subtle signs suggested that something unusual was going on. At first, it seemed like coincidence, but soon whispers started spreading. People noticed patterns. They asked quiet questions. They watched more closely. Inspections became more frequent, sometimes happening at unexpected hours, with lights sweeping across areas that usually went unchecked. Rick had expected this. To protect the real work, he created distractions. Activity increased in other parts of the site, pulling attention away from the hidden area. Noise, movement, and routine tasks became a cover, while the true excavation continued elsewhere, silent, careful, and precise. What had started as a search was no longer just exploration. It had become a strategy. Every move was planned, every step measured, as if the island itself had turned into a high-stakes game. With each passing night, the pressure grew, but so did Rick's belief. This was no longer just about finding treasure. It was about proving that the mystery of Oak Island could finally be solved. Then, everything changed. One night, the system finally responded. What had once been theory and belief suddenly became real. Under the dim glow of work lights, the first results began to appear. At first, they were subtle, small signs that something was different. But gradually, those signs became stronger, clearer, impossible to ignore. A quiet silence fell over the team as they understood what they were seeing. This wasn't another false lead. This was real. The data, the materials, the signals, all pointed to the same conclusion. When the first solid confirmation came through, even Rick paused. For the first time, they had proof, stronger than anything they had ever found before. The team nearly burst with excitement, but Rick stopped them immediately. He understood the risk. One careless word could ruin everything. The findings were secured, documented, and hidden within routine records, buried so deeply that no one would think to question them. By the next morning, everything looked normal. The team returned to work as if nothing had changed, but for Rick, everything had changed. He lingered for a moment, looking at the ground where it had all begun. For the first time, the search had direction. The mystery was no longer just a story, it was real. But with that proof came danger. Every action left behind traces, and no plan could erase them completely. Rick knew it was only a matter of time before something slipped, and it happened sooner than he expected. A transport vehicle carrying material from the hidden area nearly crossed paths with a routine patrol. Both came to a sudden stop, their lights cutting through the darkness. For a few tense seconds, everything froze. If the patrol had followed the trail back, the entire operation would have been exposed. The team reacted instantly, covering tracks, restoring the ground, removing any signs of movement. It was a close call, too close. Later that same night, another problem arose. A sudden equipment failure caused debris to spill across an area that was about to be inspected. Rick's team rushed to clear it, working against the clock as lights approached in the distance. From above, a beam slowly swept across the ground, moving closer and closer to the hidden zone. Rick stood still, watching, knowing that one more second, just one, could bring everything crashing down. But the light eventually moved on, and the danger passed. The next day brought even more tension. Heavy machinery operated dangerously close to the hidden zone, each movement risking exposure. Realizing how fragile the situation had become, Rick made a tough call. Everything stopped. The machines went silent, and the team stood completely still, waiting. The risk had simply become too great. One mistake at this stage could destroy everything they had worked for. Then, just as the pressure reached its breaking point, everything shifted again. The hidden excavation revealed something undeniable: stronger signals, clearer data, and deeper confirmation than ever before. The team fell silent as the meaning sank in. This was no longer a possibility. This was proof. Rick stood there, taking it all in. Years of searching, doubt, and persistence had led to this exact moment. This wasn't luck, it was precision. It was belief turning into reality. The truth they had been chasing for so long had been there all along, buried beneath Oak Island. But discoveries like that don't stay hidden forever. Elsewhere on the island, questions were starting to turn into certainty. Someone was getting closer. All that remained at the site was scarred earth, mud carved into rough lines, water collecting in shallow pits. It looked like the aftermath of something massive, something powerful enough to rewrite Oak Island's entire history. Rick's breathing was heavy, not just from exhaustion, but from the weight of what they had uncovered. He looked out over the quiet island night and understood. This wasn't just another dig anymore. This was a breakthrough. Overcome with emotion, he pulled off his helmet and dropped it to the ground. The sound echoed sharply through the still air. "We were closer than anyone ever realized," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. For the first time, the search that had defined generations didn't feel endless. It felt real. Miles away, inside a dimly lit operations tent set apart from the main site, Rick gathered his team. One by one, secured containers were opened, their contents reflecting the lantern light in an almost unreal way. Artifacts, dense materials, metallic traces, fragments of history. Everything they had uncovered lay before them, and the scale of it was overwhelming. But discoveries like that never stay hidden for long. On Oak Island, whenever something real is found, it almost feels like the island pushes back. At first, the signs were subtle, so subtle most would have missed them. Equipment readings began to shift unpredictably. Sensors that had been stable for weeks suddenly showed unusual spikes. Ground reports revealed inconsistencies. Areas that should have been solid started behaving strangely, as if something beneath the surface was moving, settling, or reacting. Rick noticed it immediately. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. This was a response. The deeper they went into the money pit, the more unstable everything became. Water levels began rising and falling overnight without explanation. Areas that had been dry suddenly flooded again, forcing pumps to run constantly. Yet the water kept returning, as if the island itself was resisting being uncovered. Some crew members began whispering about it. Quietly at first, they suggested maybe the island didn't want to be solved. Rick didn't openly agree, but he didn't dismiss the idea either. Instead, he focused even harder. Because if the island was reacting, it meant they were getting closer to something real. Then came another breakthrough. Unexpected, almost accidental. A deeper scan, not even part of the original plan, revealed something beneath their current target zone. This wasn't scattered material or a natural formation. This was different. It showed structure, clear, defined, intentional. Something buried deeper than anything they had detected before, positioned directly beneath the area they had just confirmed. When Rick saw the data, he didn't react right away. He studied it quietly, understanding its significance before anyone else. Because this changed everything. This wasn't just a hidden cache or a lucky find. It suggested design, planning, purpose. Something that hadn't simply been lost, but deliberately placed. And if that was true, then everything they believed about Oak Island needed to be reconsidered. The team gathered again, but this time the mood was different. There was no excitement, no celebration, only focus and tension. Because now, the risk wasn't just losing the discovery. It was uncovering something they didn't fully understand. Rick finally spoke, his voice calm, but heavier than before. He explained that going deeper wouldn't just reveal more, it would expose the entire system beneath them. No one asked questions. They didn't need to. By now, they all understood. This was no longer just about treasure. It was about something hidden on purpose, something protected by time, layers, and possibly even design itself. That night, the site didn't rest. Lights remained on across the excavation zone. Machines stood ready, but idle. No one moved carelessly anymore. Every step was deliberate, every action carefully measured. Beneath the surface, something still remained untouched. Something older than every failed expedition before them. And for the first time in generations, it was no longer out of reach. It was directly below them, waiting. Whatever lay hidden in the depths of the money pit was no longer just a mystery. It was a reality they were about to face. And as the silence of the island stretched deeper into the night, one thing became clear. What they were about to uncover wouldn't just change their search, it would change everything. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Timeful channel for more untold mysteries and hidden stories.